Good afternoon, students. Today we are going to be learning about writing fiction. Imagine you have been given an assignment by your teacher to write a short fictional story. Where do you begin? The first step is to select a genre and setting. A genre refers to the type of story, be it mystery, biography, historical fiction, science fiction, adventure, realistic fiction, or poetry. And yes, believe it or not, poetry, biographies, and autobiographies can be fictional. Think, for example, of writing an autobiography of Mickey Mouse or a biography of Captain Hook. The book Inside Out and Back Again is a perfect example of using poetry in fiction. Once you have selected your genre, you're going to want to select a setting. A setting refers to where the story takes place. For example, does the story take place at night or in the morning? Is it in the woods or in a city? In a castle or a church? All of these are examples of settings. The next step is to create a plot. Essentially, the plot is the story, or what will happen in the story. Most stories begin with an exposition. Fairy tales usually begin with once upon a time in a land far, far away there lived, and it goes on to explain the characters. The exposition introduces the setting and tells us the background information that we need to understand the story. Every good plot has some kind of conflict, which creates a rising action leading to a climax. The climax is the main event in the story. It is usually followed by falling action and ends with some kind of resolution. In this diagram, we see that the characters and setting are introduced during the exposition period. This is followed by 3 events which lead up to the climax. Keep in mind that not all stories must have 3 different events. You could have more or less depending on the story you are writing. The climax here is defined as the event with the greatest intensity, an event in which a change occurs. The falling action, then, is how the character deals with what has happened. And the resolution is how life goes on. To get a better idea of what we're talking about, let's look at a plot diagram for the Cinderella story. At the beginning of our story, Cinderella lives unhappily with her stepsisters and their mother. Then an invitation to the ball at the palace arrives. The stepsisters prepare to go to the ball, and then a fairy godmother provides Cinderella with clothes, coach, and a footman. Cinderella goes to the ball and dances with the prince. At midnight, she must leave hurriedly, and as a result loses her glass slipper. The prince swears he will marry the woman who fits the slipper. The evil stepsisters try to put the slipper on, but it only fits Cinderella. And Cinderella and the prince marry and live happily ever after. In this story, then, we can see the rising and falling action, the introduction, and the resolution. The final and perhaps most important step is to create your character or characters. No matter what the genre, you want to create characters that the reader can relate to. The best way to do this is to use your own experience to create characters that you are familiar with. Now it's your turn. With the steps that we have learned in this lesson, try and write a short fictional story of your own.